Hey, have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Well, Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. And best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. I love it for the simple fact that it brings the sponsors to you. You don't have to search for them, and they distribute it to all the major platforms for you. So if you want to start a podcast and make money doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. Again, anchor.fm/START to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. And that's it. Let's go.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. Now tuned into the greatest.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Supreme Decisions Legal Minute Podcast.
Supreme on the track.
And today, as your host, Supreme Decisions, I'm going to go over something because a lot of people are trying to come up with methods or trying to figure out exactly the level or the authority a security guard may have. And in today's episode, I'm going to give you a couple of insights to this because we encounter them more often than not, and generally they're referred to under the means of private security. And in the grasp of private security, it goes into what it is exactly they're able to do, what they're not able to do, and what they really are as pretty much security. And before I get into that, you know I often thank everybody that supports or even, supports. So the support goes to Michael Globe. He's the first supporter of the Supreme Decisions Legal Minute podcast. And I do thank you guys. And I also encourage you guys because today I'm going to do something a little different. We're going to have multiple ads because in order for us to continue to grow, we have to make spaces for people to actually even want to grow with us. So that's what we're going to do today. And that's also one of the things that Michael allowed us to do with his monthly donation. So now we're going to get into it. And I'm going to give you something because today I'm going to give you explanations. I'm going to give you several examples. And the easy examples are big market security checks and things of that nature. Because often, I'm not sure about you, but I've taken my behind to Walmart 200-300 times, and it's getting to the point that some Walmarts they are just adamant about seeing your receipt. Well, most people don't even know that there is nothing written that you have to give them a receipt. That's one. And then two, while you're out there doing that, that is something that you're just choosing to do. They cannot stop you. Even in a means of a young lady that got an opportunity to go to the UFC fight, I believe it was last week, the Conor McGregor fight. She was even offered a job by Dana White because she was stopping a shoplifter. And the biggest issue that was had by this was the fact that Best Buy has a do not touch policy. Why? Because her acting as a security guard, they cannot detain anyone. And then detaining, for most of you, I'm going to assume that we know what that means. That's pretty much stopping one's locomotion. And detaining someone, that's a Fourth Amendment violation. That is even a violation for police officers. And like I say, most of these stupid people have no clue because they're not taught any differently. And the thing that we're going to talk about is United States v. Day. And United States v. Day was a case that kind of touched on a practical response to private policing. And the reason why it becomes private policing is because, one, they're wearing uniforms. A lot of them have badges because we're programmed to respect the badge. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the movie that 50 Cent and Al Pacino and Robert De Niro was in, but one of the lines in that movie was actually one of my favorite lines. De Niro goes, "Most people respect the badge. Everybody respects the gun." And it was funny to me because more people respect guns than they do police officers. But the mindset is to give someone a uniform and give them perceived power. Because again, even police officers have perceived power because they're programming you to believe that they have an authority, even if there is not a crime. When in fact, as you go along, if you're listening to anything that I'm giving you, if you're going back checking any of the cases that I give you, you're seeing that their procedure makes them ask for consent at every step of the way unless there's a crime. Because even if they were to go get a warrant, they need the permission of a judge. Or to not get a warrant, they need your permission to do so. And one of the crazier things is in this kind of breakdown, one of the things I'm going to use is Paul Blart Mall Cop. If you remember, or if you've seen this movie, you see Kevin James. He goes out, and to me, he's an exaggerated version of what a security guard is. However, he's the exact thing that I feel that most security guards believe they are. They're like some superhero or some super crime stopper or something. They have a blown up mindset. And just to give you an example before I start going deeper into this, is I've had multiple encounters with security guards. One of my favorites is I had a guy that used to police our school, and he and I had several run-ins, but he would never overstep his bounds. And his name is Officer Austin. Officer Austin was very stern, but Officer Austin never put his hands on anybody unless they stepped out of line or they were causing harm to another person. He never got out of the realm of, I know who I am, right? He knew what he was able to do. And there was even a point to where Officer Austin, who was also a basketball official, he began, as I grew, he began to mentor me, not necessarily in the game of basketball, but in the game of life. Now, a lot of people look at the fact that you have all these young men, they don't have fathers in their lives. Well, my father was there. So, didn't like him a whole lot, but he was there. My father didn't lead me wrong. I just chose to not do the right thing. So I want y'all to understand that. There are certain instances where the choice of doing what was right and doing what was fun, I chose fun most of the time. Why? Because at the end of the day, I understood that the end result was going to be an ass whooping, but I got to have fun. So I was gonna make sure the fun was worth the ass whooping. But anyway, Officer Austin was also one of those people that became a father figure. Officer Austin gave me, I guess, tutelage on not only being an athlete, but being an athlete that was not regular. He taught me how to adjust my attitude during the game. He taught me how to measure myself throughout the game. He also taught me how to interact with the officials. He gave me jewels that most people will never in life think to even have. And definitely is one of those things that most young men at that time or even my age would even be privy to. And I appreciated him for that because when it was time for him to be stern with me, he was stern with me. He never sugarcoated anything. He never covered up anything. He never said it to where it didn't hurt my feelings. He didn't give a shit about that. What he cared about was the long run. He cared about the molding. And sometimes if you guys, that mold clay and things of that nature, And sometimes you gotta slap it around a little bit. You gotta get physical with it. You have to get it to a point to where it's ready to be molded. And I appreciate Officer Austin because he allotted that time to happen. But now, not saying he ever put his hands on me. Let me make sure that's 100%. Because I don't think I said that enough. He never put his hands on me. But when he spoke to me very directly. He spoke to me very sternly when that time was applicable. But when it was not applicable, he would bring me to the side and say, hey, do this, change that. Look at how this might help you. He never told me what to do. He just gave me direction. He offered me guidance. And these are the things that are not privy to a lot of us as young men. But the reason why that was important was the fact that even when I spoke about, let's say, police officers, right? There are 3 times or in 3 instances a police officer can act. If there's damage to person, if there's damage to property, or they are witnessing a felony. And notice I'm using the words witness. No, I'm not talking about LeBron, even though, it is what it is. When we're talking about that, and man, what a hell of a time for a helicopter to come over there because of, actually, I was actually not going to even talk about this, but everybody knows, yesterday, Kobe Jellybean Bryant and Gianna Gigi Bryant were killed in a helicopter accident in Calabasas, California on yesterday. And I think I told the story during my live where I spoke about how while I was older than Kobe, I was not in the same place. Kobe was, came straight out of high school, went straight to the NBA. And then it became like me looking on, and while I wished for the best for him, I actually looked at and followed his career. I loved how he mimicked Mike. I loved how he studied tape. I loved how the fact that he wasn't a person that just got along with people. He actually went out and did his own thing for the majority of his career. And, whether it was from the scandal that happened in Colorado to him showing, what, I make mistakes, but at the same time, I can come back and admit to my mistakes. I can grow up. I can mature. I can help mold. And that's what he was doing. That's one of the things that I actually strive for. He showed that he can be a great father. He showed that he can do these other things. And I think that's why we look at him in the means that we did. Because for me personally, I actually didn't even want to get up and watch TV today because, there are certain events in your life and you remember exactly where you were when they happened. And for me, yesterday at 1:04 p.m., when I got the news, the first thing I heard, the first thing that went into my soul was, yeah, this is a death hoax, and that's not a funny joke. And then, I waited about 10 minutes, and then another one popped up. And then I was like, you know what? Yeah, they're playing. This is too much. That's not who you play with. You don't play with code. And then around 2 o'clock, 2:30 Mountain Time, everything started just coming in and coming in and coming in. The first thing that popped in my mind was he always has Gigi with him. Did he have her with him, or were all of them with him? Because they kept talking about this exorbitant number, and then somehow Rick Fox got brought into it. But then, to find out it was him and Gigi. For me, I expected today to actually pop into something along the lines of Tupac. Because when Tupac died, I was actually in my room in Atlanta, and when the when it was announced that he had died in the hospital, um, 103, they actually 103 FM started just playing pop, like they just started playing all the stuff, and it went on like that for damn near a week. I expect this Kobe incident to be the exact same way, just like when you look at something, because even Pac for me was like losing a brother. Like I honestly, I ain't gonna lie, I cried. I ain't gonna lie. But with Kobe's passing, it brought a more humbling side to me in the sense of where I'm at in my life and understanding I've walked out of too many doors and I've been blessed with too many opportunities to not leave things better than I found them. And Kobe was one of those people. He left things better than where he found them, and he was destined to be even greater than we know him as now. And he is literally a global icon. And even at the end of my podcast, I hope a few of you actually listen to the end. But I have my Muhammad Ali and him telling you, I'm going to show you how great I am. Now, do I think I will ever get to iconic status? Hell no. But when you're thinking about your life and how quickly it can be over, the one thing Kobe talked about was leaving a legacy. The one thing that I want to offer people, because to me, I tell everybody this is the second chapter of my life. I'm 40 plus years old, but this is the second chapter of my life because I'm doing something completely out of my comfort zone, but it's becoming comfortable. I'm doing something completely out of my element, but I'm allowing myself to grow and become greater because at the end of the day, I'm doing something that I'm learning to love. And in doing that, I'm loving me more. These are the things that I'm allowing to go back because this is going to be my legacy. I understand my own immortality. I've accepted the fact that I'm going to be put into a place where I can affect change on not just one or two people, but I can actually affect change on thousands upon thousands, and hopefully at some point upon millions. I wish I could make an impression upon that because at the end of the day, this is the land of milk and honey. This is the land where you can truly do what you love and be paid for it. But this is also the land of opportunity because it gives you an opportunity to not only be seen or heard or even impressed upon but at the push of a button, but it's going across countries, continents. Because the one thing that tripped me out was I do a lot of analytics now, and I never thought about doing analytics ever. The first 40 years of my life, I ain't worried about no damn analytics. But now, this last 40 of my life, I'm worried about analytics just to see what it is. Because then, it tells me about the people I'm making an impression upon. That surprised me. And then I go to my downloads for my podcast. And then it makes me want to do this because it's funny because 80% of my listeners are from France. From France. Everything I'm talking about is US based, but 80% of the people that listen to me are from France. I just thought that was amazing. Like this is it's a podcast, because I've got several friends now that actually listen to podcasts. I have several that actually look at it. But these are the people that are shaping our future. Because even Tupac talked about, I'm not going to be the one that changed the world. And Lord knows, I know I'm not going to be that guy. But he talked about how, as long as he keeps talking about how dirty it is, someone's going to step up and start the change. That is my goal. This is what I'm aiming for with my legacy. And to get back on point, it's not only understanding how policing may not affect you at this point. But there is going to be a point where it does. And, knowing is half the battle. Again, one of the G.I. Joe references. But even knowing, being prepared is one thing that I was always taught. Because even as a Boy Scout, being prepared. My biblical people, Jesus spoke about being prepared. And then we look at these mentors and motivational speakers like Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Anthony Robbins. They talk about writing down your goals, beginning with the end in mind. The crazy thing about it is everybody that we're supposed to be looking at, everything that we're supposed to be following, talks about being prepared. School is supposed to prepare you for the real world. Church is supposed to prepare you for the afterlife. But how few people are actually following those guidelines? How few people are actually being molded within those pretexts? But understanding life is not lived in the majority. Life is actually lived within the minority. You're listening to this podcast, you're in the minority. You're going out doing things and searching for knowledge. You're continuing to grow. You're continuing to improve yourself. You're not in the majority. Your life is still being lived. You're doing preparatory things that allow you to grow to be better. This is how I'm going to show you how great I am. Because I was always told, this knowledge is not mine, so I have to give it all. This is my version of paying it forward. Because even in the aspects of something as simple as security, most of us had no real knowledge of what they can and can't do. And then when something happens, we try to figure out why we don't hear about the after effects of it. That's why I brought up the fact of Walmart and Target and Best Buy, because certain things such as the Apple Store, the security portion of certain things are different, which I'm going to get into as I go through this. But now I'm going to step down off my soapbox, and I'm actually going to start giving you guys some substance because the food is ready. We got a full course meal sitting up here. I'm gonna make sure whenever you finish this, you can go ahead and go to sleep because it's gonna wear you out. But going back to Paul Blart and the mall cop instance, he gave you the exaggerated version of what the police security guards offer, and here's the function of that, because even the greeters at Walmart function as private security. They often have plainclothes police officers that are not on duty. And again, if they are not on duty, they are private citizens or they're employees of that business. As a private citizen, they are not allowed to detain anyone because restricting one's locomotion is kidnapping. And this is something that a lot of us hear and see and go through all those exigent things, and they're not understanding that they can't do that. You can't do that. Just like I'm looking at this one video. This young lady, she refused to show her receipt. So an off-duty cop grabs her in Walmart and slams her to the ground, puts her hands behind her back. This 250 plus pound man is sitting on the back of this pregnant woman, and she's at least 115, 120 pounds. And he's pinning her to the concrete because she wouldn't show her receipt. What most people don't know is the after effects of this incident. Because the police officer at that time was not on duty, he was sued in his personal capacity. Two, Walmart cut this young woman a check. Why? Because you can't hold anybody down. Now, because he was a police officer, he was not charged. But now I'm going to give you another story that deals with Walmart. And as I talk about this, these stories are going to make more sense. There was another young man. He went into Walmart. He went to the electronics section. And I'm not sure if you've ever done this, but I've done it and I hate this. You're in the back in the electronics. They give you, they scan your item, you pay for it, and they don't give you a bag. And me, I went in there for some headphones. I went and got the headphones. I'm walking out with this box in my hand. And now, keep in mind, the alarm doesn't go off, but one of the security guards noticed that I did not stop at a register. So I walk out and he's, hey, give me your receipt. I said, I'm not giving you shit. Like, I don't care nothing about all that. So when he grabs me, I, I looked at him. I said, okay, here's the thing. I said, I'm going to ask you one thing and one thing only. And he goes, well, I'm getting ready to call the police. I said, all right, cool, call the police. I said, because they're actually going to get your ass. Because at the end of the day, did you hear the alarm go off? And he stopped. I said, yeah, because if your alarms go off, those doors and the lights will keep going on until somebody shut it off. Do you think it would have been done this fast? And he let me go. And that's when the lady from the back, because I guess somebody told them, they made the announcement that I was walking out of the store with a box. She just didn't realize I was moving faster than I guess she was. But he ended up letting me go. I went and got in the car and went on my way. But there was another young man who did something similar to that. He goes to the back. He grabs, I think it was a Genesis, what do you call that? Xbox One. I was about to date myself a little bit, but no, he bought an Xbox One out of the back, and in the midst of doing that, which apparently these stupid people don't understand that stuff is under lock and key. Somebody had to take it out to give it to him. He paid for it. He walks out, and the bag he has it in is not very big, so it's sticking out the bag. He walks out, refuses to show his receipt. So not one, not two, but three Walmart employees chase this man down all the way to his car. He parked at the back of the parking lot. So when they chase him down, they tackle him in the middle of the street. They take the game console back into Walmart. They're holding him there for about 25, 30 minutes. The police finally come there and tell them, you can't do that. Well, the police officer actually did the right things, and I believe he was in Iowa, of all places. And the police officer arrested the three Walmart workers. Walmart also cut this young man a check. Now, why is that? Because if we know that they can act, but they can't detain you, and Best Buy has a do not touch policy, and we know the only time a police officer can do any restraining of you is if you damage person, damage property, or they witness a felony. Where does the citizen actually have an opportunity in this? And United States v. Day was partially addressing this because it addressed the private side. And I'm going to give you a fun fact. Did you know for every police officer, there are 3 private security officers in the United States? That is a ton of damn people that are working as security guards. But most of us understand they have a certain job because most of it's doing with the protection of pretty much property. Because you see them at warehouses, you see them at car lots, you see them in factories, schools, sports facilities, concert halls, trains, airports, shipyards, shopping centers, because I talk about that constantly. Sometimes you see them in the parks, and even in government facilities. Because I'm going to say something, and it's going to be shocking to you. Did you know that most guards that you see at a bank are not government employees? I probably blew you away with that a little bit. But now here's the second side of that. Did you know that any officer, even if they are employed by the government, cannot pull out their firearm unless it's in the commission or during the commission of a felony? Because there has to be a felony, a felonious act that is going on. Because at the end of the day, someone has to be putting someone's life in imminent danger, which means right now they have to act. And here's one of those great understandings of that. Many of you are old enough that listen to me, are old enough to remember the young man that was in the federal building in Atlanta. You may not be very familiar with it, but yeah, it's a nice sized building not too far from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. This young man ended up, while in handcuffs, coming from like the fifth floor all the way to the garage and end up making it down the interstate to, I believe it was Sandy Springs, before he was caught. Because most of the guards that are in a courtroom either have their weapons secured or are trained to not pull their weapon while they are in the courtroom. I'm going to say that again. They're trained to not pull their weapon while they're in the courtroom. They are trained to not pull their weapon while in a courtroom because they understand pulling that weapon with untrained, low IQ people, that it becomes a dangerous situation. However, those are the people that they unleash on us in the poor communities. Because, yeah, that's not how they're policed in the affluent communities. And just to give you an example of that, I've lived in both. I have been policed very differently in both. Now, have I been stopped in both? Hell yeah, I know who I am. I know what I look like. It is what it is. Is it profiling? Yeah, you can say it's not. It is. But at the end of the day, no harm, no foul. But the policing is done very differently. And now, whenever I go to certain areas, I go to certain um, stores, I expect certain things. I am often surprised when those things don't happen. But in United States v. Day, 591, and it's a 2010 case, it addressed that non-uniform definition of private policing exists. So basically, because of the wide variety where you're seeing these people, they are basically employees. They're not government agents. They don't have the effect of a government agent. But when you're addressing whether the constitutional constraints placed on the state actors by the Fourth and Fifth Amendments apply to private security guards. Now, I'm going to keep it easy because at the end of the day, there are certain things that we know. Because you have a private person that asks you to, hey, stop. Let's say you have a police officer that says, hey, stop. Florida v. Royer states that you can go about your business. You do not have to participate in the police investigation. So, what gives a private person the authority to think that they can do something the police can't do? You do not have to participate because it's just like, just like if you're walking down the street and some clown yells out your name. Do you have to stop and give them your information? No, that's what a security guard is. And while it's not spelled out that way, they don't have the power of law enforcement. Because even in United States v. Day, it spoke about a Virginia ordinance, and it gives guidelines for what a police officer can do, or a private police officer or a security guard can do. The one thing they must do, it is a requirement. They have no choice. Any information concerning alleged criminal activity or violation shall be turned over to law enforcement officers in their appropriate jurisdictions. Now, they can't arrest you because they don't have arresting power. They can't detain you because they don't have detaining power. And the thing that's going on is a lot of these people actually believe that they are law enforcement. That's the saddest thing that I've ever seen in my life. They honestly believe that. Because even on the third pretext of this, because mostly in Virginia, if a security guard does something out of line, the absolute worst that can happen to them is they're going to be charged with a class one misdemeanor, 12 months in prison, and a fine of $2,500. That is the absolute worst thing that will happen in Virginia to a security guard. And the greatest part about this is when you're talking about security guards, most of them are bonded, not by them, by their employers. Why? Because they have to be. And it's required because they have to have some type of insurance to cover if they do something stupid, like pretend to be a police officer when they are not, or pretend to have the authority of a police officer conducting an arrest, which they do not have. Because what that is supposed to do is deter them from actually committing a malfeasance on someone's constitutional rights. All right, now welcome back. Well, one of the things I actually wanted to get deeper into is the search of a human being or a person that is conducted by a security guard. And again, it's in these types of big chains where this is most frequently happening. And it's being deemed one of those things where it should happen less, but again, until it is a pretty much trained on thing, it's going to continue to happen because at the end of the day, most people will go along with it because they just they don't want to fight back, and it's proven in the numbers. And whether men lie, women lie, numbers don't. And at the end of the day, 95% don't fight back. Guess what? They're going to keep doing that. So when you're talking about being searched, because this actually even rolls down to the children, because I talked about how the children do not lose their constitutional protections or the restrictions of the Constitution are still available to them within the schoolhouse, right? Because that's actually the words that they use, the verbiage they use in that particular case, schoolhouse. But the one thing we all must know is stating the private police do not benefit from qualified or sovereign immunity. Now, I'm going to get in later the difference between those. And when they're talking about conducting a search, the first thing they're supposed to do, one, is they cannot search you. Because any information concerning any alleged criminal violations shall be turned over to law enforcement officers in their appropriate jurisdiction. Because they do not have policing power. And unless the owner has given consent, a security guard search of private property or person will generally constitute a trespass. And arrests or detentions not authorized by state law generally will expose a security guard to civil and criminal liability for false imprisonment and, if force is involved, an assault. These are things that are not my words. These are actually things that come down from the Supreme Court because they are private citizens. No regular citizen can run and tackle somebody for anybody else. Their employers are liable for their dumbass actions. Just like I spoke about when a supervisor says it's okay for another police officer to do something stupid. they're liable for that same police officer's stupid behavior. This is no different from this young lady stopping. Because just like I said, unless the owner gave consent, the security guard's search of property was a trespass. And arrest or detentions are not authorized, even by state law, because there are only certain guidelines that offer a private citizen to detain another private citizen, which is the commission of a felony. And when you are talking about the taking of goods, notice I never bring that up when I talk about a crime, because larceny is a civil action. I'm going to say that one more time, because larceny is a civil action. And for those of you that don't know what that means, I am talking about shoplifting. It is a civil action. It is not a criminal act. Now, people get upset when I say that. The problem is, I didn't write the law, and I don't give a shit about your feelings. That does not change the law. Because at the end of the day, when we're talking about someone's goods, and no time do you hear me say, a crime is taking someone's property. No, there's damage to one's property, damage to one's person, which again, just like they spoke about, it's an assault if there is a physical involvement of their detention. Like this young lady in Best Buy, when she stopped the shoplifter from leaving, that's a detention because she used physical force. That became a criminal assault. She was not arrested, but that's exactly what that is. But guess what Best Buy is going to do? They're going to have to cut this young man a check if he decides to fight them, because it is against the law for her to do that. It is on video around the world, her doing it. I'm going to say it one more time. They have a liability. That is why she was fired, because she violated their rules. Their rules govern what they're allowed to do. And what she did, they're not allowed to do. Because when you're talking about this, and this is one I'm going to get back to again, this is one of those things where I talk about how this action was handled. Because for me, Best Buy did the exact right thing. They did it immediately. I commend them. They get the old clap. Now, got a quick question. Best Buy was quick to fire this young lady, and she makes $10, $12 an hour. Well, actually, she was in Hawaii, so it might have been about $17 an hour, right? So let's say she makes $17 an hour. She got fired immediately for doing something that made her a liability. Why do we not have those same exact protections from the police that go out and do things they know makes them a liability? Because they don't only hurt themselves, they are the jackasses that put other police officers that are doing the right thing in harm's way. Why are they not so quick to be gotten rid of? Now I'm going to get back on topic. Because again, just like we talked about that young lady creating a misconduct that created a liability of trespass, false imprisonment, and arrest, which she didn't um put him together for an arrest or whatever, but he was quote unquote banned from the store. And the property he was stealing or whatever was happening, he didn't leave with. So, no harm, no foul for the most part. But that's one of those things where even something that's right can be wrong because it's unconstitutional. And because we're taught, we're programmed, we're suggested that it is wrong and it should be handled in this way. Because this young lady, instead of doing what she was trained to do, she did something that she saw on TV. She did something that she felt was right, because she constantly, because you can go on YouTube right now and pull up video after video after video after video after video of people that work for Walmart, that work for Target, that work for these other places that are grabbing these people and hemming them up and doing other things that state, it is what it is. Now, here's the crazier part, because you guys know I've watched Tommy Sotomayor, and I talked about a couple of things that he did. One of the things that I'm going to talk about today is a video he did maybe 2 to 3 months ago. In the video 2 to 3 months ago, he spoke about how this group of young women were going into, I believe it was a Dick's Sporting Goods. They literally went in and grabbed thousands of dollars worth of merchandise and walked out. And then a couple of them got arrested later for selling it online. And for the most part, they thought their behavior had nothing, had no consequences and there's no effect. And he was wondering, he was like, oh, wow, how can they do that? And why is this not against the law? And blah, 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 blah. And he went on and on about it. But it's again from those contexts of programming because you're taught, you're shown, it's illustrated, it's reinforced by other videos and other things that are sent because you don't see the after effects of it. He doesn't know Dick has a no touch policy. Why? Because what they're doing is not a crime, it's a civil action. But stopping them can result in other actions that follow. Assaulting them in a parking lot because if they're bold enough to go in and get hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars worth of merchandise, yeah, they're probably bold enough to carry a pistol and they're probably bold enough to take somebody's life. And I don't think anybody that's getting paid $10 an hour should be taking a bullet in the chest for somebody else's merchandise because at the end of the day, it is what it is. But there are things that are being put in place that allow this. And here's the greater effect of things of that nature. When you're going, because I actually figure out the type of area I'm in immediately whenever I'm out. Because if I go to a different city and I start seeing, as soon as I walk in, you got 2 or 3 levels of doors and metal detectors, and you got to do some extra stuff to get around the corner to get outside. Yeah, it's a high crime area. Most people don't even think about that. If you got doors where you can walk in straight, but you can't open them but one way, and then to go out, you got one direction to go out, and then you can't go through certain areas, it's a high crime area. It was designed for that purpose to deter crime, to deter theft, and also to make it more difficult for you to get out. But what they also don't realize is, let's say they're in this high crime area or in the low income area. You're going into these places you have people that are taking things from out of these places, right? Most of them have no logical mindset to understand that whenever you are a business costing a business to lose money, the first thing they're going to do is increase the price of the goods that they're offering. They're then going to go out and going to cut down on they're then going to go out and cut down on the amount of staff they have because they're going to change and reposition how things are set up in the stores. Most people don't understand that. And then you have people that will get upset. Oh, well, they're following me around the store. Yeah, it's a high crime area. Get your numbers up. And honestly, I hate to say stuff like that, but that's exactly what it is. You walked into a place where somebody has put this business into a liability. But because of the Supreme Court, they have to do certain things to not only keep their insurance low, because again, a business has insurance against theft. Because there's a certain amount of theft that's going to happen. It is what it is. But when you're doing the blatant acts that's going on, and they understand these laws are applicable in their situation, and they're taking advantage of these types of situations, you now have things that the repercussion is higher price for you. So that means less opportunity for you. That also means less other things for you. So these are the things to be mindful of. But even the security guards have to understand putting your hands on someone creates that exact same liability. Because just like talked about, misconduct may result in liability for trespass, false imprisonment, and assaults. Improper detentions can cause harm. And even in the flow of how everything goes, no matter what it is that you're looking at, you have to understand you're not police because every aspect of your job is to alert law enforcement. Because I'm gonna give you another one because I watched on I believe it was Live PD because y'all know that thing seems to be my thing for right now. They had these young kids, 14, 15, 16 years old. These young ladies were going out and they were stealing shoes. Now, not that they were broke, not that they need the shoes. They were just out stealing shoes just to be stealing. And again, because these young people have very little idea of the value of anything, let alone a dollar, the security guards did the right thing. They alerted the police. The young girls didn't run. They didn't run after them. They didn't do anything. Because even here, El Paso threw me for a loop because I'm in an area of town where, well, I would say it's very middle class. It's very when I say very middle class, I mean very middle class. And I went to a couple stores over here. I went to a Target over here. I've gone to a couple other stores out here, and I noticed all of them had metal detectors. And a couple of times I've heard the alarms go off going out the door. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, okay, cool. So I look over. There is literally no response from anybody in the store, like none. And I was like, "What in the hell?" So I had to ask. I asked the young lady. I said, "Why is it y'all have metal detectors if nobody responds when they go off?" She goes. She said, "One, we can't do anything, even if we do see them." And she says, two, we don't have security here. And three, nobody's gonna chase anybody for the stuff that's in here. And I cracked up laughing because it wasn't like it was cheap stuff where I was at. It's just we're not doing it. That's not what we do. But that's what made me actually start going to look at this because I had a situation that was it was actually kind of a dumb situation. It was a friend of mine. He had went to Kmart of all places because they were going out of business. When he went in there, he found some work boots and he found them for the low, low, low. So when he was walking up, he realized, oh shit, I don't have my wallet. So he put the boots down in a different section than he found them. Right? No harm, no foul. Now, I'm gonna give you a little context. He was a young guy. He was in his early 20s, right? Now, he didn't look. He had just gotten off work, so he was dirty, filthy, blah 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 blah. So when he goes out to his car, he notices his wallet is not in his car. He drives back to work. When he comes back, Kmart's closed. Okay, again, no harm, no foul. Next day, gets off work, goes right back to the same Kmart. He goes to the spot where he had put the shoes at, did not see him, so he was like, "Oh shit, somebody must have bought them." He goes to the back and he grabs another pair of shoes because basically the shoes that he was buying, somebody had put them back. So when he was getting the shoes, a store employee grabbed him. And when I mean grabbed, I mean he Mike Singletary him. He tackled him. He put the shoulder on him, put him on the ground, tackled him, put him in handcuffs, and literally drug him to their little holding area. Now he told him, "Oh, you're stealing the shoes," and he goes, "Oh no, I'm not stealing the shoes. This is what happened. I'm buying the shoes, blah, 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 blah. It is what it is." The store employee didn't want to hear that. So, in the midst of that, this young man's girlfriend calls me. "Hey, this your boy done got jammed up. Come down." So when I get there at the time the police do. So the police officer, he's kind of, he wasn't, I'm not, he was very disinterested in what was going on. So I asked who was the one that had grabbed the young man. And he goes, Well, the guy goes to tell me all kind of BS. So I said, all right, cool. The police officer asked for the tape. I said, shit, we'll all go look at the tape. So while we're watching the tape, the guy stops it. He goes, you know what? Yeah, I was the one that grabbed him. I point to the police officer. I said, yep, that's the one to arrest. And the guy looks at me. He goes, well, what do you mean? And the police officer told him, he's like, well, I can't arrest him unless the guy that was detained wants to arrest him because he's an adult. So he goes, yeah, arrest him. So the guy is dumbfounded. He's like, why am I getting arrested? He was doing something. He goes, well, yeah, we don't know what he was doing because you tackled him when he got the shoes based on the videotape. And then two, you're not allowed to hit him. That's an aggravated assault. Actually, they charged him with simple battery. You know, I don't know how it was simple battery, I guess because he wasn't bleeding, but they charged him with simple battery. And Kmart gave my buddy a call. And in essence, they gave him, it was pretty much a similar situation, but not necessarily the same as my Walmart incident where I told you Walmart kept sending me gift cards and they were like, you know, we're not going to do that, blah, blah, blah. His was a similar incident. The only difference was Kmart sent him I think he paid $20 for the boots or whatever, and they were like $90 boots. And they ended up sending him $100 gift card, because he didn't want to press charge or want to sue Kmart because he had the option to do so because that security guard had placed the liability not only on himself but his employer as well. So I want you guys to think about that for just a second. I'm getting ready to go into the last part of this, but I'm going to give you one more commercial and then we're going to get to the real meat of this entire podcast. All right? So get ready. Here we go. Now, I hope you guys have been somewhat entertained. And this is going to be the last section for today. But I talked about a lot of things that dealt with the inactions or activities of a security guard. And one of the things that I want you to take away from this is when I talk about the Supreme Court cases, one of the things that stands out the most is each one of the answers give you a situational application of your rights, their restrictions, and police procedures. In this instance, we're talking about non police and the conjecture that's being placed upon them are ideals that are being challenged and the simple facts that rest that came from United States v. Day. Now, I'm going to tell you it's a great read because United States v. Day goes into a lot of different things. Even if you go to the Harvard Law Review website and download one of the syllabus from that, I think it's a good read. I think it's something that's very interesting, and I know it's something that you can grow from. But when we're talking about just one portion of it, that's what this is about. Taking each one of these pieces and taking just small bites so we can actually digest what's being given to us. And the security guard portion of this, the inner breakdown of everything that I've been doing, it actually comes to this. Everything that I've said, from the stopping, the detaining, the examples I gave with Walmart, Best Buy, Target, because even before I get into this last one, I'm going to give you one more with Target. Because there was a Detroit police officer. He got into an altercation. Now, what happened was this Detroit police officer was off duty working a second job as security at Target. Now, before you talk about how they're not getting paid enough money, blah, 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 this officer was making six figures. Now, anybody that's been married, anybody that is married, Anybody that has children, most of us know that even if you're making six figures, I know some seven-figure doctors that are living paycheck to paycheck because they're running out of month before they run out of money. Many of us live above our means. In this case, I'm going to guess that's what it is. Also, if you're a man and you're married to a traditional woman, and what I mean by that is the one where happy wife, happy life, because you're not trying to put up with that BS when you get home, and all you care about is that you got a soft place to lay down and a roof over your head. That's where this comes from. So that's what I mean in the sense of traditional. When you have the traditional wife, any man will tell you you have a actual paycheck that you bring home. That's the one that you and the wife sit down and chop the bills up with. These extra side jobs, that's your play around money. That's your be happy money. That's your cigar money. That's your beer money. That's your liquor money. Well, at least that was with me because it was also included in my strip club money. I was, and my shoes. But it also can be used for the extra money because for whatever reason, children, even when they leave the house, still need money. I have no clue why that is. But things happen. And for the most part of this, he was working a second job for whatever reason, because it didn't get that deep into the story. But in the midst of doing that, he walks up to a young man who I guess he didn't feel had enough money to pay for something. But this young man actually didn't leave the store. His wife was still shopping, which would be the young man that the police officer engaged with. His wife was still shopping. So again, as any of us know, as a married person, as a married man, if your wife is shopping, there's no need. If you're not going to stand there with her and go through all that BS, you finna find you a comfortable seat. You finna find you something else to do because you're not finna sit up here and go, "Ooh, this is nice." I'm not finna. Yeah, I don't do that. So yeah, as long as we understand, I'm gonna go get what I need to get, then I'm gonna go sit down. This is what this young man went and did. Well, while he's doing that, the police officer comes over to him. He tells the young man he needs his receipt, which I thought, even just looking at it, one, Target isn't really one of these I need to see your receipt places. Because generally their cash registers are literally in front of the doors. I have not seen the Target where the cash register was not in front of the doors. Haven't seen that one. But he wasn't leaving the store. He went and literally sat down. He had Target bags in his hand. I'm going to say that one more time. He had Target bags in his hand. He literally went and sat down. He wasn't leaving the store. Well, in the midst of doing that, this cop snatches this young man up and then pulls out his baton. So the guy reaches into his pocket, and because police are taught that everybody's a threat, everybody's a criminal, everybody's trying to hurt him, this police officer begins to hit this man with his baton for reaching into his pocket. So, in the midst of this altercation, this young man is then taken outside of Target by this off-duty police officer that is a security guard. This officer who has been doing this for 15 years in Detroit. Here's where it gets funny. While outside, the officer, one, you can't really tell what's going on, but had Target not turned, because Target turned over the video from inside as well as outside, along with several cell phones of the people that was recording it. But the man is telling the officer, "Why are you doing this? You're doing a whole lot for no reason." And the police officer, hits this young man in the mouth with his baton, breaking his jaw and knocking out a couple of his teeth. So, one of the things that they do, as far as quote unquote police, one of the intimidation tactics is to now throw this man in jail. Note, I haven't talked about a crime yet. Note, I even spoke about this young man reaching in his pocket to get an officer what he asked for. Nope, they arrested him. Didn't charge him with anything. Kept him in jail for more than 5 days. Why? Because probably before he gets out, and again, this is just a guess, he's going to have to sign something that states that he's not going to sue the police department, he's not going to sue this officer, and he's not going to sue Target. Because all of them are culpable because the police department for holding this young man without bond or even charging him for more than 72 hours. Because I think I gave you a court case, about how long they can actually hold you because I thought it was 72 hours. Come to find out, it's 48. The first 48. They can hold you for 48 hours without charging you. But we're programmed that it's 72. I actually was astonished because I've actually been held for exactly 48. It might have felt like more, but I slept most of it without being charged. Because at the end of it, it's an intimidation tactic. I know that. So I'm prepared for it. But what happens is this officer, one, didn't even have policing power. Two, this young man had no obligation to speak to this dude, nor was he under any contract to show a receipt. None of the things that would exist that would allow him to do that. Because acting as a security guard, the police officer's only limit to exercise lawful common law citizens arrest. And you remember I told you that is only, absolutely, unequivocally, only during the commission of a felony, which would actually be put in the exact same position as a uniformed police officer. Because even as a uniformed police officer, he was acting out of line of his oath of office. He violated his fiduciary duty. He violated the policy of his police force. He also violated the policy of the state by doing things beyond the scope of what the state can allow him to do. But again, these are things that are aggravated assaults. That is an aggravated assault. And the thing is, where's your line to fight back at? Because even in this instance, there was a young lady, because I'm about to close for the most part. There was a young lady in one of the cities that in Georgia where there's a new Walmart. Well, the new Walmart has a bunch of young people working there. In the midst of doing that, this young lady goes to the store, her and a friend. They go to the Walmart, they grab some groceries, they grab some toys, they go put everything in the car. But if you know Walmart in some areas, they're a little stingy with the bags. So again, it's one of those instances where a lot of her groceries and some of the toys that she has are not in bags, but she's at the car. This Walmart employee decides to go out and now start taking stuff from this young lady because the young lady is, again, I don't have to show you a receipt. So when she gets there and she's taking this, her and the young lady get into a loud verbal altercation. Just so happened the police pull up in the midst of this during the verbal altercation. Well, this young lady who's there with her two children and her friend is placed in jail because of a verbal altercation, because of the mishap of a security guard. Here's the crazier part. She wasn't charged until she got to jail, and her friend didn't call a bail bondsman. Her friend called an attorney. The attorney went and got the videotape from Walmart. Walmart then contacted the attorney and gave the attorney a number. And what I mean by number was a settlement offer. But it was only if this young lady accepted the plea bargain. Where, again, The police officer allowed the action to happen in spite of not knowing if this young lady, the other security guard from Walmart, had lawful authority to even exercise any of this. Because in the midst of exercising any of this action, it has to be done through an owner. Because if you remember when I first started, I told you about Apple. Apple and several other companies are doing things that allow for their employees, quote, co-owners, to make decisions such as pressing charges, aggravated assault, trespassing. They're doing these things simply because they're looking to protect their bottom line. And here's the greater part about that. The way they're doing that is they're offering them stock options. Walmart is starting to offer their employees stock options. But guess what? Not everybody gets them because you got to work a certain amount of hours and you have to be there a certain amount of time. And generally, the security guards are kind of a revolving door, or they're not getting enough hours because generally they are greeters or they're part-time employees, which does not qualify them for those stock options. Those are the ones that are making decisions. So just keep that in mind when those actions are being done, because even at the end of all of that, you have those managers that become liable when they're looking to help enforce this stupid shit behind these police officers. This is why when they're acting out as security guards, they are acting as representatives of their employer. This is why you have Walmart liable, you have Target liable, you have Best Buy that's liable, because their employees, their representatives, were doing actions that were not allowed by not only their policy, but by the state or governed by law. So keep that in mind. And if you are a security guard, stop touching people. No means no. You are not Chris Brown. This is not how things go. But at the end of the day, I hope if Chris listens to it, it's a joke, man. Take it easy. No means no. But anyway. But at the end of the day, it's understanding that even these have deeper context. Now, is United States v. Day the exact same thing, or will be something that you apply just for this case? No. Will it be something that will be applied only for this case? No. Does US v. Day only constitute what's going on right now and only for security guards? No. There are several cases that, one, just like Terry v. Ohio. Terry v. Ohio gives you a Fourth Amendment start. It is the base. It is the crust. It's the foundation. United States v. Day is your foundational case for going against security guards. And that's all I have for today. I love you guys. Don't forget, you have an opportunity to support the podcast, and that's with either a 99-cent support donation, $4.99 support donation once a month, and $99.99 support donation once a month. And it's on the first of every month. So let's keep going, let's keep growing, and your boy loves you.
The shaking colossus.
I'm gonna show you how great I am.